Hey everyone, and welcome to our podcast. I'm Rebecca.
I'm Ali.
And I'm Matt.
And we are brother and sisters. And we just thought it would be really fun to do a podcast where we just get together and have a little chat and tell each other crazy stories that we find.
Yep, crazy but true. Always.
Oh, do they have to be true?
Yeah,
Are you
it's just not
joking?
true.
Why are you going to tell us a story that's not true?
Matt, then we
mine
can
is.
tell anything.
Mine is true today. I didn't know that was. Oh,
Of
maybe I
course
did
it
know
has to
that.
be true. What's the point in telling a fictional story?
Yeah, when we're looking them up, we have to believe that they're true. If it comes out they're not, but that's no fault of ours, fair enough. But if we have to look for real stories. That's why it's like, wow, that really happened.
That's fine. Mine is true, so it's fine.
So are you all okay? Did you all have good days?
Yeah, I just want to explain a bit more about it though.
What about your day? Or?
Because people
Can
will be...
I tell my story and leave?
Yeah, Matt's all
because
good
people
over
will
there.
be coming and yeah, they don't really know. So it's lockdown.
Mhm.
We thought it'd be fun. Me and Ali absolutely love true crime podcasts.
Yeah.
Matt loves his movie podcasts and just all different interviews. He listens to loads of different stuff. So we just thought it'd be really fun for us to do one. We love getting together, having a chat, and we just thought this would be just a fun thing to do. So hopefully
Yeah.
you'll like it, but if not, then we're still going to have fun.
Yeah, we're just going to have fun with it. Welcome, and we hope you
Yeah.
enjoy.
And we hope you have fun. We're gonna have fun.
Yeah, we hope you have fun with us having
Yeah.
fun.
The
And we
key
all
word
have
is
fun.
fun. Yeah. The stories aren't fun, but they are true.
Okay. So yes, everyone's good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sounds good.
Any updates?
No,
Any news?
still lockdown. What day are we on of lockdown now?
Who even knows?
Who's
It's
counting?
been not quite a year of on and off lockdowns.
Yeah.
And it's
This is-
crazy times.
Official lockdown number 3, but yeah, who knows
Yeah.
when it's going to end.
Well,
Vaccinations are happening.
we're based
Oh,
in
my
England,
friend-
in case no
My
one
friend,
can
I
tell.
won't say her name. She you both will know, but don't say her name. She's been offered her, well, you know, she might want
Yeah, of
privacy. She's been offered her vaccination because she's got asthma.
I was
And-
offered my
Ah.
vaccination.
Were you?
No, you weren't.
I got an email. I've
Did you?
completely
But you're
forgotten.
not
I got an
vulnerable.
email today.
From who?
I'll read it
What
out
the
because I guess
heck?
it's
Well,
topical.
don't read out all your NHS details.
Dear Matthew, after your STD results, we've. Oh no, wait, no, let's go back.
Oh, Matt.
I'm joking. I did get an email. Hold on, let me just find it.
Yeah, but she's been offered it, and obviously she's nervous because there are some side effects apparently.
No,
but she has
oh
to get
my
it.
goodness. What side effects? The side effects
Well,
are
we
like
don't
it
know,
cures
do
you
we?
from the worst disease that's going around.
So
at the
Matt,
moment.
all right, but Matt, why did you get offered it? You're not a vulnerable.
I completely
risk.
agree. Why
Yeah,
did I
Maybe
get
you
so
offered
are.
it?
Maybe
crazy.
you don't know that there's something actually wrong with you.
They said you have been selected to receive a coronavirus vaccination.
Wow.
Wow.
The NHS is performing selections for coronavirus vaccination on the basis of family genetics and medical history. Oh, what
the heck?
Wow.
I didn't realise I had any of that. And they
but-
said I have to respond within 12 hours. This is
Oh
the
my
email,
gosh.
and it literally says accept invitation or reject invitation.
What are you going to do?
I will be accepting, absolutely. I think everyone should be taking this vaccination. But I'm just surprised they've offered it to me now. Like, I don't understand
Yeah,
why.
that's so weird.
Well, just go
And
for it then.
saying because of your genetics and stuff, none of us got offered it. So
No,
yeah, that's
I
so
didn't. I
strange.
didn't.
Yeah, I don't know where they've got that information from.
Mm.
Wow. Well, let's see. So, but you don't have a date. You don't know when it will happen.
No, I mean, I don't know. It just, that's all the email says, really. I mean, it just says a lot of stuff about why it's a good thing to have it. By the way, we should probably tell people it's January, right? I mean,
Yep, January 2021.
yeah.
January the
Yeah.
25th.
Yeah.
I keep thinking it's 2020 and writing it on everything.
Yeah.
I
I'm
know.
gonna get used to that when it
it's,
starts.
Yeah.
2020 was a
Time is flying.
good number, bad year.
Yeah, I feel like this year's going to be good though. I have high hopes.
I feel like this year's going to bring a lot of good things.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely. I'm
change.
looking forward to it.
Okay, so
But you never know.
I will speak for the listener.
Okay.
I've
Sorry.
Stop talking.
The Matt show.
So I don't fully know what this is. So can you two?
Okay.
do you mean?
I mean, you two love
mean?
these
Yeah.
this style of podcast. So help me out for the listener. What exactly?
Okay, so
what can I expect?
We want to tell crazy stories which are just like, oh my gosh, they really shock you, they're dramatic, but they're true, which is what's so interesting and exciting about them. They could be survival stories, they could be murders, they could be about aliens, they could be ghost stories, but hopefully not, because me and Matt are very scared of that.
Don't log
Yeah,
me into this.
I will probably be telling a few ghost stories, but I won't do too many.
Yeah, I'll get nightmares. But yeah, they could be anything but true. And it's just an informal chat. It's not like we're professionals reciting every detail of a case or a story. We're just telling it like when you meet up with your friends and you're like, oh my gosh, did you hear that story? We're just doing a bit of that.
And obviously, it is sad because a lot of it is stuff that's really happened to people.
Yeah.
And we are not being disrespectful. We completely respect everyone in the stories. You know, we know how sad some of these stories are going to be.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, people are interested in hearing about them, and actually a lot of people can learn something from a lot of these stories. And it is important to tell people's stories as well. That's how, you know, you keep a lot of memories alive. You can help warm people with these stories. And yeah, it just, yeah, it's good.
People like stories.
People who are very clued up, especially on murder stories, like we hear in a lot of our podcasts, Ali, that it makes them more, what's that word? Like they're more
aware,
exactly. And then they avoid certain situations which you might not otherwise. So it's good in that sense. Also, obviously this isn't really going to do this, but when podcasts do talk about murder stories, like you're saying, it's sad and stuff, but yeah, it does create awareness for the person and the people who've gone through stuff. And yeah, it's just, yeah, but yeah.
And with that, I think, Bex,
we'll begin.
Tell your story today?
Yes. So I'm not sure how long this is going to take me to tell it. It's one of my favourite stories that I heard, like I was just gripped. It's actually from a podcast, Case File, and Case File's one of the first podcasts I really got into, one of the first true crimes. And this was just, when I heard this story, I was like, oh my gosh, I was hooked. So I thought I would do that. So if you guys do want to know more details on this story and get the full facts, then you go to Case File episode 86. But this is my version. Okay. I'm not going to tell you what it is, by the way. I'm just going to start.
Okay.
On the 31st of May, 2016, in Cottage Grove, Minnesota, 2 law enforcement officers knock on Amy and Stephen Allwine's door asking to speak to Amy. However, her husband Stephen tells them that she's not in. They arrange with Stephen for Amy to come down to Cottage Grove Police Department as soon as possible, which they do the next day. When Amy gets to the police station, the FBI are also there and inform her that there has been a threat on her life through a site on the dark web. You remember this, Ali?
I remember. It's a good one.
Yeah, because I told you about this one as well. But let me just say, I was so hooked because of the whole dark web thing. I just find the dark web so interesting.
Is there something I need to know? I don't know what the dark web is.
You don't. You know
You've
the
never
dark
heard
web.
of the dark web?
No.
It's the part of the web anyone can go to get anything. It's to be honest, it's very dodgy.
Like
you have to have codes, I think, and stuff to get onto there. And to be honest, there's no reason why any normal person would want to get onto there.
You mean like people can even buy people?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, there's the thing
drugs,
with the dark web.
Drugs, people, guns,
weapons.
You can look at people getting killed, horrible things.
Well, we don't know. That's the problem, because there's so many rumours and myths. We don't actually know what's true. There are myths that you can live stream people getting tortured and you can pay money and say, oh, slice off their ear and things like that. But we don't know if that's really true. Apparently it's not. But the dark web is just very dodgy, and people 100% do go on it to buy drugs. There's the whole black market. You can supposedly buy people, and
and you can hire people to murder people and things like that.
Okay, let's carry on.
Well, apparently, yes. So anyway, we've done that paragraph. Okay. So in 2016, the most popular and profitable murder for hire site on the dark web was called Bessamafia. Customers would post a job and Bessamafia would assign them a murderer, but hold the money in escrow, which is basically where they hold it in a third party, so it's not given to the murderer until the job's complete. So I think that obviously gave people some trust that their money was safe. So on April the 25th, 2016, the Besser Mafia site was hacked, revealing an extensive database of names, addresses, photographs of people who had all been targeted for murder. There was also Bitcoin addresses attached to this, which meant that people had paid large sums of money to have this done. So they were very serious, like they had actually paid for these murders. It wasn't just all talk. And Amy Allwine was on this list.
On the list of people who paid?
Of people to be murdered.
Oh, to be murdered.
To be murdered, yeah. So she was going to be a victim of murder.
Right.
Matt, sorry, could you have written that down in your questions for later?
Yeah, I do have a pen and notepad with me.
So, it had been requested for Amy to be killed while she was away from home, along with Bitcoin worth around $12,000 to $13,000 from a person called Dog Day God. Dog Day God first contacted Besser Mafia on February the 15th, 2016, sending an email saying, "I'm looking to hire you for a hit, but what is the recommended way to convert cash to Bitcoin anonymously?" As Dog Day God was worried that a large transaction from their account would raise suspicions with authorities. Besser Mafia sent Dog Day God names of Bitcoin traders that didn't require identification, suggesting ways to explain the money away, such as investments, purchasing goods and services, or online gambling. Dog Day God told Besser Mafia that the target will be travelling out of town to Illinois in March, and what is the price of a Bitcoin for a hit, ideally making it look like an accident.
Hearing this story is making me think, are we going to end up dead by talking about this?
No, it's fine. So Besser Mafia offered Dog Day God their range of services. So it's $5,000 for a low-level gang member wearing a turtleneck and using a handgun, or $10,000 to stage an accident. They settled on $6,000, where a gang member waits at a predetermined location and rams Amy with a stolen car. It was planned to hit Amy in March 2016 on a trip to a dog training event, and Dog Day God was advised to make sure they were surrounded by people or in a CCTV areas throughout the day so that they had a good alibi. On March 20th, Dog Day God got in touch with Besser Mafia, asked if a job had been done, but they said not yet. The hitman followed her, but they didn't have the chance to do the hit yet. They said he needs to be in a position where he can hit her car to the driver door to make sure she dies. Besser Mafia suggests a sniper would be better, as long as no one would suspect Dog Day God if she was murdered. But the sniper would cost another $6,000. Dog Day God didn't have the money, and the hitman didn't have the right opportunity to hit Amy's car, so the hit was not carried out. Besser Mafia asked Dog Day God if it's okay for them to get her in her hometown. They say, "We don't normally ask the reasons why people are killed, but if she is your wife or some family member, we can do it in your city as well, making it look like an accident or robbery." Dog Day God said, "She's not my wife, but I was thinking the same thing." They then requested for Amy to be killed at home and for the house to be burned to the ground so that the police couldn't tell if anything had been stolen. But this would cost another additional $4,000, which Dog Day God paid the next day.
Wow.
Dog Day God then starts telling Besser Mafia all this information to try and help them get the hit, saying, "I know her husband has a big tractor, so I suspect that he has gas cans in the garage. I asked that you only get her and not the dad or the kid." However, the arranged day came and went, and Amy was still alive. Besser Mafia told Dog Day God that the hitman had troubles getting to the location. So Dog Day God's getting really frustrated now, and they are getting annoyed because they just want her dead. And they say, "Yes, but I have to pretend to be her friend and get this information. It's driving me crazy to be nice to her. I'm also afraid that if I dig for too much information, it will look strange." They rescheduled for the next week, but again she wasn't killed. Besser Mafia made another excuse that the hitman had been taken in for a stolen car. Dog Day God, really frustrated, says, "I realise that things happen, but this bitch has torn my family apart by sleeping with my husband, who then left me and is stealing clients from my business." They then expressed how they are at the point that they don't care how it's done, they just want her killed, and if it's not done by the 1st of May, they want their money back. "I need her out of my life so I can move on," they said.
Yeah.
So, Amy and Stephen are being told all of this by the FBI, and they're completely shocked. They have absolutely no idea why anyone would want to kill Amy.
But hold on.
She's really loved.
Steve and her husband's just heard that she slept with this lady's husband or whatever.
Right, so yes, I'll read this. So, So Amy was adamant she had never and would never cheat on her husband.
Right, okay.
They were extremely strong Christians belonging to the United Church of God. And Stephen
just for
was
the
a preacher
record,
there.
Christians never do anything wrong, just in case listeners don't know that. Right, carry on, Vix.
And Matt's a very devout Christian.
You are going to get some hate. Okay. So, but Stephen didn't believe Amy had done it. You know, she's known to just be such a lovely person.
Yeah, well, she's a Christian, so that goes without saying. Right, carry on.
Amy had been brought up dedicated to her faith and met Stephen at Ambassador College in Texas, which was more like a training ground to prepare youth for life in church rather than an actual education place. After college, Stephen moved to Amy's hometown, St. Paul, Minnesota, and then they married in Cottage Grove, and they were both deeply committed to the church. They spent most of their time together, but it was all really focused on the church, and they were both ordained as deacon and deaconess in 2006, and Stephen rose to the position of an elder, where he would counsel couples, give sermons, and anoint those who were ill. A year later, they adopted a son, as Amy was unable to have children. Amy was well known and loved for her generosity. She would travel extensively doing charitable deeds and spread the word of God in other countries. Her passion outside the church was dogs, and her Australian Shepherds, which I really want, were competition winners. She turned this into a career and trained other people's dogs to compete. She opened her training school, Active Dog Sports, and all her clients adored her. Her training school is on the Allwine property, and her business grew to be very established and successful. She was known as a sweet, friendly, positive, and loving person. So the hack on the Bessa Mafia website also revealed that it was all a scam. So the whole website is just a scam. No one ever gets killed. All they do is they pretend, they take people's money. They do the same thing to everyone where they'll say, this is how much for this person, and then that hitman won't be able to do it, so they'll be like, oh, we can get a sniper, or oh, if you pay more we can get someone really professional, and they just keep conning people.
So they'll pretend, oh, we couldn't carry it out because of this,
and then the police will never chase them because people can't say, I paid these people to kill someone. They didn't do it.
You're not going to report it, are you?
Smart con.
Yeah,
but that's what I think.
And
is
you're
so
conning,
crazy.
ultimately, you're conning bad people because these are people that are hiring you to kill someone. If you're going to con anyone, con a villain, you know?
Yeah, so you don't necessarily feel
I just
too
need
bad
to make
about
a note to tell my
con a villain
accountant tomorrow that money is not coming back, right?
No, but it is crazy that people would actually, like, of course they're going to take your money. They can just take your money and not kill anyone. So why would they go to the effort of killing someone?
You said about this, your money's held in a safe place. It only gets moved over if a job is done. What was that?
So it's not held in a safe place. They hold it in escrow. So to the customer, they think, oh, Bessa Mafia are holding it for me. The murderer's not getting it. So it just gives them that thought that, I see. It should be okay, but it's not.
Is still part of the con.
It's all just Bessa Mafia.
They've already got even when
con.
it's in escrow, they've got the money.
When
it's done.
As soon as you sent them the money, they have the money.
Yeah,
it's no longer yours.
Mm-hmm.
And Dog Day God, because Amy she wasn't getting killed. They had tried so many times and it wasn't happening. Dog Day God had demanded a refund. And Bessa Mafia told them that the site had been hacked and that if Dog Day God didn't pay another $4,000, they would forward the details to the police. Now, this was about a week before Amy and Stephen got told about it.
Right.
So they couldn't work out who would do it. The FBI suggested it might be someone who would inherit her business if she died. Stephen didn't care about dogs or the training and knew nothing about the business. The only person they could think of was one of her colleagues, Kristen, even though it was still just so unlikely. But Kristen was someone who helped her set up the website, and it was literally the only person they could think of. Police interviewed all her colleagues and Kristen, but it just led to nothing. The FBI spoke to various people in Amy's life, but it all came back that she was loved by everyone and that she definitely wouldn't have an affair. They told the Allwines, I'm not sure how it's pronounced, to install security measurements around the house and just to stay in touch because there wasn't really much else they could do.
Mm-hmm.
They got all new cameras. They bought a handgun as well as a shotgun and 2 rifles they already had. And they used to go to the range together and learn to shoot. On July the 31st, 2016...
I have a feeling this is going in a bad direction. Whenever it's like, they bought guns, it's like, okay.
There you go.
Okay, here we go. They
On
bought
July
guns
31st.
and they protected themselves, and everyone lived happily ever after. All right.
That's how it goes. How did you know? On July 31st, 2016, Amy called FBI agents upset as she had received an email telling her to commit suicide or this person would kill her family. It was an anonymous email from someone called Jane. And this person knew that Amy had put up security. She knew that she had spoken to the police. They listed Amy's family members and threatened their lives. They listed a number of details about her husband's car, what her son wore on a particular day, where her parents lived, and it was all true. Like, they knew all of this stuff about her. So the FBI started reinvestigating. They checked the family's computers, asked people in dog training world, but they just couldn't find anything.
I mean,
Amy
at this
assured the
point,
agent.
I've never heard this story before. I want to guess what's going to happen, but I shouldn't do that, should I? I should just let you tell us. No, tell us. I don't want to ruin it. No, you tell us. You tell us.
Okay,
Yeah.
you just tell us at the end what you thought.
I'll write it down on my notebook.
Yeah. So we know you're not lying at the end, pretending
I'll
you
date
knew.
Amy assured the agent that she would not commit suicide. Her family needed her, and it was just against her church, of course. And yeah, it's just not something that she would ever do. On November the 13th, 2016, a neighbour noticed smoke coming from the Allwine's wood burner, which he found odd as it was a warm day, and he also noticed the dogs barking, but he just didn't really think much of it and just went about his business. Later, around 7 p.m, Stephen and their son Joe arrived home. Stephen unpacked the car and Joe came back and asked, "Why is Mummy lying on the floor?" Amy was beside the bed, staring up at the ceiling, and she had no pulse but was warm. There was blood and brain matter on the carpet underneath her, and the gun was near her left elbow. Stephen called 911 and said, I think my wife shot herself. There is blood all over. The police turned up while Stephen was still on the phone, and Detective McAllister, who was like the main detective in the local police, who knew about the dark web and everything, he was asked to attend, which he thought was strange because he normally for suicides a detective wouldn't have to attend, but then when he realised who the victim was, he recognised the name from the internet threat, so immediately went to the house. When he got there,
I'm shocked. I was not expecting this to happen.
Awful.
I can't believe you just like, the husband came home and his wife was dead.
What were you expecting?
You thought she'd be okay.
Yeah, I didn't know you were just going to be like, oh, and then she was dead. Like, wow. That's,
yeah, I know.
Like, we didn't even give people a warning.
Well,
okay.
Well, I didn't want to say at the beginning that it was a death. I don't know. This is the way he tells it in case file, and then it kind of happens. And
let's carry
well,
on.
because sometimes if you say this is about this, it loses some of the sort of suspense.
Yeah,
exactly. No, it's fine. Right,
but
on.
yeah, it's so
It
sad.
is
I mean,
awful
it's
story.
so sad.
It's horrible. Yeah.
Just had some water there. Okay. So Detective McAllister is instantly suspicious because, one, Amy had been cooking dinner. Why would she do that if she's going to commit suicide? Two, there were blood drops next to her, which seemed like it had come from something dripping above her.
Oh.
Also, there was blood. The way the blood was on her cheek was as if she had been on her side. So it was as if her body had been placed on the floor staring upwards. Mm-hmm. Also, the floor outside the bedroom looked like it had been recently cleaned, whereas everywhere else had dog hairs and it just was out of place. It was just like this floor was clean, whereas everything else wasn't. She had also taken part in a police academy a couple months before when all of this stuff was going on, and she had wrote that she really enjoyed it and wanted to do it again in a few years. So it just didn't feel like she would commit suicide.
She was planning for her future.
Exactly, yeah. Stephen was questioned. He said he had been working from home all day in the basement and Amy had felt ill, so went to lie down upstairs. Amy's dad had come to pick up their son, as Stephen had said Amy wants to go to the hospital if she was feeling really bad, but then she changed her mind. So the granddad has the son. Stephen goes back to work in the basement and Amy goes back to bed. Amy did normally get migraines, so he didn't think too much of it. When he went to pick up their son at 5 p.m, they then went to dinner. He texted Amy to see if she wanted anything, but she didn't. The dogs were in the kennels when they got back. Joe, the son, went in first because Stephen was getting something out of the car, and Joe found his mum, as we already heard.
How old was Joe?
9.
That's
Right.
awful.
Yeah. Stephen said to the police that Amy hadn't seemed depressed. She seemed like she was getting better. He provided his phone to the police and was tested for gunshot residue. Everything the police said, like, give us your phone, this, he was very happy to cooperate and oblige. Her parents also noted that Amy was right-handed, but the gun was to her left. So they thought that doesn't make sense. So police officers were really suspicious and they started their investigations. They used luminol, which is where the stuff shows up on the floor and on things, you know, like the UV.
It can show blood or stains. Disgusting stains.
Yeah, so they use luminol on the floor, and it showed that blood had been spilled through the hallway and tracked around the house. There was like footprints with blood. So they started looking back through the dark web files, and one detective started to explore other pages and found that Dog Day God was on other sites such as Dream Markets. This was after the Besser Mafia. And Dream Market is an eBay style site where people can buy drugs and other illegal goods. And Dog Day God had requested a drug called scopolamine. I think that's how it's said. Now, this is used to treat motion sickness, but is dangerous in large doses. It's referred to as the zombie drug, as it can cause amnesia and make the user so drowsy that they are incapacitated and extremely susceptible, that's the word, to suggestion. Dog Day God did manage to purchase some, although the seller warned them it's dangerous and it will make you gladly hand over your kidneys and you would have no idea where, why or who and when you gave it away, when you came back to your senses, which is so scary.
Yeah.
Like, that is terrifying. When Detective McAllister heard about this, he asked the examiner to check the drug in Amy's body, which came back positive 40 times the amount of a suggested dose.
Oh my
so
God.
she had been drugged with that at a crazy high amount.
Wow, I
Stephen
mean,
was
surely
brought-
that much might have killed her.
I know, right?
It's
40 times the
it's
suggested
unbelievable.
Oh.
Stephen was brought back in for questioning.
Ali's
He said he had
noises.
no...
Oh.
Whoa, it's just like, oh my gosh, you know, shocking.
Oh.
Stephen was brought in for questioning. He said he had no idea why there was blood in the hallway and he had never heard of the dark web before the FBI told him about it. But Stephen did confess that he had had an affair with a woman called Michelle who knew all about Amy.
Knew it. That was exactly what I wrote down.
What did
What
you
did you
write?
I
He had
thought
an
he was
affair.
cheating. Because when the minute you said they're Christians, I was like, hold on. Hold on.
Hold on, he's a cheat. He's a cheat.
But listen to how he met her. This is so crazy. They met on a site called Ashley Madison, which was a dating site exclusively for people who were married and wanted to have affairs.
Yeah, I've heard of
that's
this.
so bad.
This
That is
website,
disgusting.
got hacked, and it turned out that so many of its users were Japanese. Because I was in Japan when I heard about this. Yeah.
Oh,
And then
because
suddenly all these husbands and wives have found out that their partners are cheating.
Wow.
That's very depressing, isn't it?
That's
for
so
married
awful,
people,
yeah.
like
That is another
that's so sad.
conversation for another day.
Yeah, yeah.
No.
Matt can tell us all about that.
What does that mean?
I don't know. It was a joke.
I've never cheated.
No, I know you haven't. I meant because you lived in
I think
Japan.
Oh, I thought
Yeah,
you meant
'cause
his views
anyone
on
listening to
marriage and
this-
stuff.
Right,
Matt
so
lived in
he's cheated
Japan
on
for a few
people.
years, guys. He'll tell you all about it.
Yeah, and their tagline was something like "Life is short, have an affair." It's just crazy.
Oh, lovely. Well, life is
So-
short. Split up with the person you don't love anymore and go and find the person you
Right,
do
we're
love.
gonna start
instead of
going on
hurting
the wrong
someone more
tangent
and more.
here.
No, let's talk about this now.
Okay. They had started seeing each other in October 2015 and had been away together and often met up when Amy was on a work trip. But Stephen said it was kind of casual, but he had told Michelle all about the FBI threats and she had been to their house. Police tried to search for potentially related cases. They were really struggling finding anything concrete. So they tried to search for potentially related cases and found a case from March 2016, which is when all of the Besser Mafia, Dog Day God chat was going on.
Yeah.
Someone had come into the police station to report a fraud for a Bitcoin transaction. And this fraud was apparently a man named Mark was supposed to be selling this person, training materials for $6,000, but they were never delivered. So at the time, the police weren't familiar with Bitcoin, so the report kind of just sat there and nothing really happened. However, now, obviously, they see that and they know its significance.
Mm-hmm.
They found the person who had made the report, and it was Stephen Allwine.
No,
So the husband.
that's
Yeah.
mad.
I thought it was going that way. I thought, because I thought, well, either he wants his wife dead so he can be with a woman he's cheating with, or the woman he's cheating with wants his wife dead so she can be with him. But I definitely thought, well, it's one of them too.
Yeah. As Ali says, it's always the husband, eh?
I mean, the husband's the first one you suspect, but I've heard this story a couple of times, and when I first heard it, I actually didn't suspect him until a lot further in. Because the way the guy tells it, you don't suspect the husband.
Exactly.
But yeah, sad, man, awful.
So they took hold of all computers, phones, and hard drives from Stephen. But he was an IT specialist. They didn't really expect to find anything. However, they found a search from before the hit had been put on Amy for a dark web network. So he had been looking up the dark web and looking up how to install dark web. And he looked up how to install dark web onto a specific type of computer. And this specific type of computer he did not give to the police. So he obviously had another computer he was hiding.
Yeah.
Shortly after the first message from Dog Day God was sent to Beth Mafia, Stephen had searched Bitcoin. So this was on his phone saying he had searched Bitcoin or his MacBook. He had also searched dog competition calendars before Dog Day God had given Bessa Mafia details of Amy's trip. So it's all the messages from Dog Day God to Bessa Mafia were all linking up with searches in Stephen's laptop and things. He also took out a $700,000 life insurance policy on Amy.
Oh, man.
Get his money back.
Also... it's crazy.
Awful.
They also couldn't find any evidence of this supposed Mark person who apparently had scammed him, and they thought if you're going to do a $6,000 transaction with someone, there's going to be emails back and forth about what you're buying and things like that, but there was just nothing like that. There was one email from Mark sent from a disposable email address, and on Stephen's MacBook Pro at the exact same time the email was sent, on his MacBook Pro, he had accessed a disposable email account thing. So it was just, so much.
So
they then...
you're still going. Okay, carry on.
Yeah, sorry. But that apparently is all circumstantial. So the main thing that was like the smoking gun was they found a backed up note with 34 random letters and numbers that were the exact Bitcoin address that Bessa Mafia had given Dog Day God to transfer the money. And Bitcoin addresses were completely unique. So there's literally no other explanation except for this is this. He had made the note because he'd copy and pasted it, deleted it 1 minute later, but it had already backed up in the cloud, so it was just too late.
He didn't think clearly enough about getting rid of it all.
His work also said that he hadn't logged on that afternoon that he was supposedly working from home all day. He hadn't logged on in the afternoon after lunch. And when police contacted Michelle, she revealed that on one of the dates, Stephen had been running late because he had been buying Bitcoin from someone and had locked his keys in his car. Also, you can listen to the 911 call. Yeah. And he's so calm. I don't know, it's weird because obviously, like they say, you never know how people react, but he's just so calm. And his son says to him, "Are you going to remarry?" And he kind of laughs and says, "I don't know." Like, it's just kind of strange.
And the thing that really upsets me is that he allowed his son to go in the house and find his mother. How can you do that to your child?
Exactly.
But that guy, I mean, so he was 9. That was 5 years ago, was it?
And Stephen was obviously thinking, if I don't find her,
then
exactly,
it's taken me one more step away. You know, normally the first person to find the person. I mean, but to allow your child to have that on their mind,
like you just do not care at all.
No, that is awful.
You only care about yourself. It's just so bad.
So the weapon was discovered to be one of the ones they owned.
It was the handgun, because obviously she was supposedly had committed suicide. So again, so it was their handgun.
take away the guns, and it would have been harder.
Yeah, but then he could have secretly bought a gun.
Or he could have, just done it another way. But yeah, of course, a gun is so easy to use. So yeah. So on January the 20th, 2017, Stephen was arrested and charged with second-degree murder of Amy, even though he had been planning the killing. But then that charge was then moved to first-degree murder. And he had originally been given bail and he had got out, but then they upped this to 2 million. So he was in prison until the trial and he couldn't get out.
Mm-hmm.
So the prosecution claimed that Stephen drugged Amy with the scopolamine in her lunch, then got his son out of the house while shooting Amy while she was disorientated. He then burnt any evidence, such as the clothes and the cloth he used to clean up the mess, so that's why the wood burner was going. And when he picked up his son and brought him home, he let Joe go in, like we were just saying, so that he could find Amy. His motive was that he wanted out of the marriage, but as his status in the church was so important, like the church was so important to him, his role as an elder was just everything to him. And if he had got divorced, he would have lost that job, lost that title, and he probably would have been the church wouldn't have allowed him anymore either.
Yeah, the less I say, the better.
Yeah, honestly, it's insane.
It makes you just like, it's better to murder your wife and hopefully get away with it than it would be to just say, you know what, the marriage isn't working.
Exactly.
I mean, how mad is that?
That's crazy. Yeah, and that,
it's so
what
crazy.
would that woman have preferred?
I know.
Well, I know. How did she
alive,
react to all this? You know, did she know what he was planning, or his
it's just awful that
mistress?
How do you just live this life where, you know, you're pretending to your wife, oh, you know, we're good, and on the other side you're planning to kill her? I mean, I don't even understand how you wake up in the morning and get through the day knowing that secretly you're planning to have her killed.
I mean, you think it definitely takes a certain level of a not quite right mind to be able to do that, you know.
Just be so chill.
Yeah, I feel like not just anyone could wake up tomorrow and want to do that. He must have had things going on, like, and
to not think, like you said, to be let the sun go in first, like all of these things is just like he just had lost any emotion. Did he even have emotion?
Yeah. He was just,
it's just crazy. Someone
completely.
You were once married to and loved supposedly, that you could now do this to, and just, and the messages, the reason I wanted to say the messages from Dog Day God is because, you know, he's saying how he hates her, he needs her out of life. It's just so brutal.
It's like
just crazy.
I mean, I've heard that people like that, they'll often, like, in his mind, he could have been thinking, this is just me projecting, it's not, you know, they could have been thinking, well, she's stopping me from living the life I want to live. I feel sorry for myself, you know. That's how some of these people think, and it's madness.
Yeah, it's terrible. So Stephen showed little emotion throughout the trial, and the box of tissues on his table was untouched. The gunshot residue he had been tested for was positive. He had loads of people testifying against him. There was an escort who he had slept with. There was the man who he had bought Bitcoin from. And after just 8 hours, he was found guilty and sentenced to mandatory life in prison without parole. And that is my story.
Excellent.
His son goes into psychiatric help, probably.
His son had moved in with the grandparents. So Joe and the son had actually, after it had all happened, they had moved in with Amy's parents. So Amy's parents were absolutely devastated. And this is the thing, it says that Amy's parents went to the trial hoping that he was innocent. With that sort of mind frame, he would never do this. Exactly, thinking, like, sticking up for him, and then obviously they realised that he did do it. So they were just so distraught. But I don't know if they still look after the son, but also the adoption was an open adoption. So he did actually see his real mum as well.
Okay. So you never know if they were reunited.
Was the son when they adopted him?
He, like, 2 days old. It was straight away.
Oh yeah, so he would have thought of them as his parents his whole life.
Yeah,
so he still
completely.
Has to
yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing. Like, the wife's dead, which is the one thing, but that kid's life. I mean, how hard is it going to be for him to go back?
Oh, it's so awful, because it's you've lost both parents, because your mum's been killed and it's the dad who did it. So what do you do? But and it's horrible, because in the 911 call you can hear the son in hysterics, and it's just awful. Like, it's so sad, because he's like, why would she do it? Why would she do this? And it's just so man. It's
and the dad would have happily let his son believe his mother committed suicide and left him, you know.
Exactly.
Right, what were their names? How do people look up information on this case? What should they look for?
It's Amy Allwine and Stephen Allwine.
It's off of Case File, isn't it? That's where you
It's
got
the
the
podcast.
information.
Yeah, I got most of it from Case File podcast number 86. When I was looking, I then found this thing about the person who created the Besser Mafia site, and that was just like a rabbit hole, and I was like, I can't start reading this, but I might talk about that on another website.
And
That
before you knew it, you were paying someone to, take off your fiance. You didn't even want to do this.
Beck, that is an amazing story, and I'm really glad you did that one, actually, because that is one that's stuck in my mind forever since I heard it. Like, it's some crazy whirlwind, awful. You just never ever know what someone's thinking, do you?
Yeah,
it's scary.
But let me just say this, and obviously I'm not going to say any names, but I do know that this happened to someone near where we live. Right. But the mum didn't get killed, and they were very religious, and he was in love with someone else, and so he tried to hire a hitman, but the hitman went to the police and told the police. So he got arrested before the mum died, luckily. But You've never told me this. I'm sure I have, but the family are so religious. He's come out of jail. They've now all forgiven him, and he's back with the mum. They're back.
Right. After when we stop recording, you have to tell me who this is, because I don't remember who this is.
You don't know them, but it's just a story from my area. But yeah.
Okay.
Good job, Bex. Amazing job, actually. That was amazing. So, Matt,
why are you laughing, Matt?
You got your story.
Well, that's the first true crime story I've ever heard.
Do you need a moment?
So I'm shocked.
Is it really?
Yeah. What do you think?
Much darker than I was expecting it to be.
Oh man, sorry.
To be honest,
Matt, I'm sorry, but they're all going to be pretty dark. I'm afraid.
I didn't really think. Because I always presume Ali would do a murder, I didn't really think that I would. I'm going to try to normally not do murders, but that story I just had to do it because it's just got so much to it.
No, it's fine. I hadn't experienced it, so.
And for the record, I will be throwing in a ghost story here and there, but I will make them very few and far between. I just think it's important to add that, different stories in, and there are some that are so interesting. So
yeah, and when I go to bed at night, I will be freaking out. So.
I won't do them often.
That's pretty harsh, Ali. That's pretty harsh. You're forcing Bex to listen.
Okay. Well, I don't.
No, it's fine. Honestly, no. I completely agree. It's interesting for people, so I'm happy for you to do it.
I'll do them really, really rarely. They'll be the story I do the very least.
I'll put my headphones on mute and then pretend that I listen.
Yeah, you could do that. I don't mind.
And then just chime in with, and what happened then? People don't need to know that, so right. Do you want to do? Do you want to move on to the next story?
Yeah, go for it, Matt.
Okay, so this one's going to be so different to yours, I'm guessing. This is probably a lot of people already know this story. It's called The Princes in the Tower. Do either of you two know this?
Oh, that rings a bell.
Yeah, I kind of know it. I've heard about it, but I can't really remember now.
Is it Tangled, Matt? No, because we don't tell stories like that on here.
So no, it's not Tangled. This is this is quite a famous story in English history. So I'll just tell you.
Mm-hmm.
This is the story many historians now come to tell of the princes in the Tower. In 1483, King Edward IV died. This is obviously all true. This is King Edward IV of England. Naturally, it would be his eldest son, followed by his younger brother, who would be next in line for the throne. However, for two young and vulnerable boys, this is not a position you want to find yourself in during the late 15th century. The eldest son, King Edward V, was the youthful age of 12 when he was given the title of king. And his younger brother, Richard of Shrewsbury, Duke of York, was only 9. I'm just giving you all these titles because everywhere you look for information, they love giving you these titles. So I feel like it's somehow relevant. Anyway.
Yeah, of course.
And let us know where you got most of this info as well, because that's important.
So I've written this up myself, but it's just come from where. I mean, you look anywhere for it, you'll find it. I mean, you'll find at the end as well. So anyway. So, 12 years old is King Edward V, and his young brother's 9. So at such an age, who would 2 young boys turn to and trust? Their paternal uncle, Richard, Duke of Gloucester. Richard decided that the princes should be lodged in the Tower of London in preparation for Edward's coronation. However, before he was crowned King of England, he and his brother were declared illegitimate, and it was their uncle, Richard, who they trusted and they placed themselves in the care of. It was him who ascended the throne as Richard III. And
How convenient.
The young princes were never seen again. In 1674, work was being done on the Tower of London, and what should be found under the staircase but a wooden box containing 2 small human skeletons.
Oh.
So the legend of the murderous uncle killing his 2 nephews to strengthen his claim to the throne grew even greater. And that legend was made famous by William Shakespeare in Richard III. Mm-hmm. So that was Shakespeare's Richard III was about the king being so hungry for power that he killed his 2 nephews. In 1933, the bones were re-examined and proven to be those of 2 boys aged about 12 and 10 years old, which was almost exactly the same age as the princes when they disappeared. However, no conclusive DNA can be attained. And so to this day, the exact detail and truth of what happened to the princes in the tower still remains both a mystery and a legend.
Wow. I have heard that story before.
Yeah.
That is so upsetting. And I mean, obviously, you think straight away, he absolutely killed them.
Well, this is the thing, though. I mean, obviously, historians have different opinions. First of all, there are 2 main people. Richard III, because he had such a claim to the throne if those 2 princes were taken out of the picture, but also Henry VII. So Henry
that's
VII
our distant
later...
relative, you know.
Just drop that in.
Henry VII, he basically spent loads of Bitcoin on this online.
Back in ye old Bitcoin.
I was watching Ali for a second, sort of nodding her head, like, yeah.
No, because I knew you were joking. Ye old Bitcoin.
The old coin.
Henry VII later became king through conquest, so it is arguable that he could have got the 2 nephews assassinated because it would have later favoured him as well. So there is some debate whether it could have been Richard III who had them assassinated, whether it was Henry VII who had them assassinated. There were also 2 men during that time in history who later came forward saying they were the boys and they'd like ran away and disappeared. But basically, I think most people believe now that they were assassinated and hidden in the Tower of London, you know, to never be seen again. Wow. It was only like, what was it, 200 years later their bones were found or something? But I mean, it's just crazy even at the top, you know, like the King of England is hiring assassins to kill his nephews and stuff.
But, it's just crazy that the corruption that happens throughout history of all people, it's scary. And it's, how were there not people around them? Like, why was there no one else? Like, they trusted the uncle, but why was there no one else who was thinking, where are the boys? And how did no one else know about this or stop it? It's terrifying.
That is.
But think how many people under his power. I mean, actually, it's a lot. You'd think it's a lot easier for him than a husband, because how many people would do anything he says?
Course.
You know,
you're
not
true.
Gonna upset.
I mean,
king.
you wouldn't get that. No, you wouldn't get away with that now, like they used to be able to.
Well, of course, but
I mean, the thing is, those boys, like, they didn't want to be born into this position of power.
That's the worst thing. If they'd had the option to not do it, they wouldn't have wanted to. But I guess back then you couldn't just say, "Well, I don't want to."
That's real. That's like Game of Thrones stuff. That.
Yeah. It
awful,
really is.
Awful.
It made me think of The Lion King. Scar, Simba. But,
that
we all have our references.
Isn't that what they say? Don't they say The Lion King's based on
Richard III?
I don't know if it's Richard III. I'm sure it is a Shakespeare novel. It might be.
I don't know.
Play.
But I mean,
I think it could be. I mean, that is it, isn't it?
Yeah, that is it. I was gonna say Uncle Scar in the middle of that, but I didn't want to.
No, I think you're absolutely right. There's another Disney movie that they say is based on a Shakespeare play, I think, but I can't remember what that is.
Finding Nemo.
That
Well,
rings
what
a
would that be?
bell. You know what we watched? Finding Nemo.
Shakespeare's Under the Sea.
Yeah.
No, that rings a bell, and I can't think which one it was. Yeah. Okay, do you want me to tell my story?
I think
Go
so.
for it.
Okay, so my one is called the Yuba Sutter Mystery.
Oh,
And
interesting.
I did get this from a podcast called Unexplained by Richard McLean Smith. He is fantastic. He's one of my favourite podcasters. And he tells stories of the weird and wonderful and mysterious. So this particular one is actually called Called to the Forest. And it's a two-parter. And it was broadcast on the 4th, 2019, the 19th of the 4th. But sorry, yeah, that sounds really complicated. He doesn't have episode numbers, they're just dates.
Right, okay, I see.
Yeah, but it's unexplained, and
Yeah.
yeah.
Is this a ghost story?
No.
Oh, it's
And-
because Unexplained, you've told me about it, and I think I tried to listen to it, and straight away it was like a ghost story, so I just couldn't.
No. Some
Okay.
of them are verging on the mysterious, but
Yeah. Okay.
most of them are not ghost stories.
You said it was a
Alright.
two-parter. Are you telling it all now?
No, yeah, I'm just telling it all, but he does
Okay.
it in two parts because
Yeah.
his is extra long. I'm just trying to move. Oh, there we go. Okay. It was February 24th, 1978, in the small district of Olivehurst, just to the south of Yuba City. This is in America. Far off in the distance, the northern tip of the Sierra Nevada mountains could be seen, its pine-covered ranges still capped with snow. Down in the valley, it was barely jacket weather. Gary Mathias's friend, 30-year-old Jack Madruga, pulled up in his turquoise Mercury Montego outside Gary's house, accompanied by 32-year-old Fred Weir and 24-year-old Jack Hewitt. Gary reminded his mum to wake him early the next morning for the basketball game he would be playing in. He raced to the car. They then collected Bill Sterling, who was 29, and they were on their way to watch their favourite basketball team play. The men had met at the Gateways Project, which was a project to help men with learning difficulties live their lives. Jack Madruga was the least affected by his disability. Although he was never diagnosed with anything specific, his thought processes were considered slower than average. He had been an army veteran. He'd done 2 years in Vietnam as a truck driver and had recently started work as a dishwasher at a local dried fruit company. Ted and Bill were the closest in the group, having known each other for 8 years. Ted had got a job through the Gateways Project, repairing cables for a local gas and electricity company. Just like the others, Ted was thought not capable of fending for himself, so he lived at home with his parents. He was more lacking in common sense. So one time when Ted's parents' house caught fire, Ted was just concerned about getting back to sleep. He wasn't even bothered about the flames that were licking around his bed.
What the heck?
Yeah. So his brother had to force him out of the house to save him. So Ted just lacked complete common sense.
That's extreme, though.
Yeah. It was hard for Ted to make friends with people. Bill had also gained employment as a dishwasher at the Air Force Base, and he'd spent a lot of his youth at a psychiatric hospital being misdiagnosed and misunderstood. 24-year-old Jack Hewitt could not read, write, or use a telephone. He was the most severely affected by his disabilities. Jack and Ted made friends when they were 16 years old. 25-year-old Gary Mathias was the newest addition in the group. He was also an army veteran and had spent several years in Germany. He suffered a psychiatric episode brought on by hallucinogenic drug use, and he was discharged and sent home. Over the past 2 years, however, before this, Gary had been well and he'd held down a job at his father's gardening business. He'd been introduced to the Gateways Project to make friends, and the group all met that way and they bonded over their love of basketball. Okay, so the friends were heading an hour's drive north to Chico to watch their favourite team. They'd done this several times, so this shouldn't have been any different. It was a normal thing for them to do. Bill stopped on the way at a garage to get his allowance from his parents. They owned the garage. Bill's mum was a bit worried about letting Bill go for some reason that night, but he promised it would be okay. Shortly after 10 p.m, the game finished. The men were heading home. One of them suggested, let's stock up on some snacks for the journey. So they pulled up outside a convenience store. They got what they wanted and they headed back off home. Bill's mum was up. It was after 12 midnight. She knew Bill should have been home by now. She hadn't heard anything. She tried not to panic, so she called Jack Madruga's mother. He hadn't returned home either. Calling around the other homes, they discovered none of the men had returned home. The next day, the men were due to meet their Gators team for their big basketball game, because they all played together in a basketball team.
Mm.
And they would never have missed this game because they were due to play in a tournament. And if they won that tournament, they could have had a place in the Las Vegas finals. So they would never have missed it deliberately. Mm. One of the men's parents called the team. They let them know they were missing and they called the police. Bill's mum also drove to the stadium and asked everybody, did you see these guys yesterday? You know, she was talking to all the staff members, showing pictures. No one recalled seeing the men. They just couldn't remember the men. So the Yuba County Undersheriff, Jack Beecham, he just had no idea what could have happened. No crashes were reported. A ranger called Burris called in saying he had come across an abandoned car while making a routine drive through Plumas Forest. He'd called it in once he heard about the missing men. And it was really odd because Plumas Forest was in the opposite direction to the route the men would have taken to get home. And stranger still was that the point Burris had seen the car was 4,000 feet high into the forest. So it was definitely their car. It was a turquoise Mercury Montego. The following day, Wednesday the 1st of March, Beecham made his way into the forest with some deputies. In the summer months, holidays would have been all over the forest routes as there was a nearby lake and it attracted loads of people. There were log cabins dotted about. It was really nice. But in the winter, the roads became really impassable because there was so much snowfall. So it was really so quiet. Mm. So where the road became narrower and more rugged is where Beecham spotted the turquoise abandoned car.
Yeah.
It was covered in a light dusting of snow. Beecham brushed the snow from the window and could see wrappers littered inside the car and some flyers from the basketball game. He tried the door and it opened straight away. He started the car and it roared to life. The wheels were slightly stuck in the snow, but nothing a push wouldn't have solved.
Yeah.
Beecham wondered to himself, why would 5 men drive into the mountains and abandon their car? Could it have been stolen and abandoned there? So Beecham got loads of searches going on. He got helicopters. He got everywhere. Guys looking everywhere.
Yeah.
There was no clue as to where the men were.
What year was this, sorry?
1978.
Okay. So
survival would depend on finding shelter. Failure to do so, the men were all dressed in casual short sleeves, you know, they down in the valley it was like barely jacket weather, so the men were dressed casually. They would have been stumbling about in sub-zero temperatures, so unless they found somewhere to shelter, survival would be so unlikely. So Beecham had to inform the families what they had discovered. Could the men have been assaulted and the vehicle stolen, or had the men abandoned their vehicle for reasons unknown? Either way, neither scenario looked good. After scouring everywhere within a 5-mile radius of the abandoned Montego, the Yuba Sheriff's Office had found nothing. By the end of the day, though, a man called Joseph came to them and told them that the night the 5 men went missing, he had been going through the same stretch of forest, testing out a drive he was due to make, and his car got stuck in some snow. After trying to get the car out, he got tightening in his chest, so he got straight back in his car. He didn't know it at the time, but he actually had a heart attack, a mild heart attack.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So he was keeping warm in the car with the engine on. He was drifting in and out of consciousness and was suddenly startled awake around 11 p.m. by a car and a pickup truck's headlights. The cars passed him and disappeared around a bend. He then heard voices and decided to investigate. He could see figures moving about in front of headlights and made out a woman and some men. He called out for help but got no response, and the headlamps switched off really quickly.
Oh, wow.
So he decided to head back to his car and a short while later made out beams like torches in the forest. He again called out for help, but again no one answered and all the lights went out. Eventually, Joseph's car ran out of gas, so he couldn't take shelter inside any longer due to the cold, and he started walking. He again spied the car from the night before, the green Montego, but there was no one there. He managed to get back to safety, so he walked down the mountainside, and he told once he was safe home, sorted himself out, he told the sheriff all of this, and he explained he wasn't completely with it at the time as he had suffered a mild heart attack, but he'd managed to walk the 5 miles to safety. So why couldn't the young men do the same?
That in itself is a story.
Yeah. I know, that's incredible, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, fingerprint.
You should have started with that, and then be like, "You think that's crazy?"
Can I start again?
I'll edit it in a way it works.
When fingerprint dusting was carried out in the Montego, there were no other marks inside other than those belonging to the 5 men. The sheriffs expanded their search to the lake a few miles further up the road. There were no footprints, clothing, or any other signs could be found. A local known psychic was called in by the family. She ran her hands over some of the clothes belonging to the men. She said she could see they were in a cabin near a body of water, and she could see a row of men tucked into green sacks like sleeping bags. One of the relatives asked, "So they're still alive?" "That's all I can tell you," the psychic said.
Okay, hold on.
We know you love psychics, Matt, so
it's 1978, so they've said, right, call in a psychic.
Matt, you have to understand that back then, psychics were used for a fair bit. Like, if they had tried everything, they would welcome a psychic.
Do they still do that now?
Occasionally, yeah, they do, yeah.
I have heard so many stories. I mean, I don't know about now, but so many stories where they are psychics, which is just... Yeah.
And actually, I've heard a couple of really amazing stories where a psychic has actually led them to the exact person they were looking for.
No way.
Yeah. And maybe I'll tell that story. I will tell that story in a future
Maybe
episode.
That's what's happening now, no? I mean, is that a spoiler alert?
Let me carry on.
Okay.
So, but bear in mind, if you were so desperate to find your relative, I think you'd try most things. I know I would.
As the family, yeah. Obviously, the police is different, but as a family...
Well, no, the police have their own psychics they call in. It does happen.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've seen The Mentalist. I get it.
The Mentalist is amazing.
So, by Saturday, March the 4th, when the search had entered its 2nd week and the storm showed no signs of slowing, the Butte County Sheriffs decided to pull back resources. But Jack Beecham and his superior, they could not call it off anytime soon. So they carried on and they finally got another lead. The owner of a local store had been working the day after the men had been seen when 2 men matching the description of Jack Hewitt and Gary Mathias came into her store. They bought some snacks and went back outside to eat. A second witness also claimed to see 4 of the men the day after that. 2 of them stayed in a red pickup truck, whilst 2 others were in a nearby telephone booth. Beecham then instructed a unit to go back over all the evidence. A $3,000 fund was set up by friends and relatives, but nothing else came to light. After 3 weeks, Beecham had to call off the search. There was a deputy called Lance Ayres, and he had gone to the same school as Ted Weir and his brothers, so this had really impacted him, and he took it as his mission to follow up any leads that came in. So he carried on following leads, nothing was coming to light. By the end of May, everyone had begun to lose hope, but high up in the mountain, the snow was beginning to thaw and would start letting up its secrets.
Mm-hmm.
So
that was the end of part 1, wasn't it?
That's it. No, that's it. So what do you think happened? So a group of bicyclists, but you're right, that was the end of part 1.
I knew it.
A group of bicyclists.
Cyclists.
Oh my goodness! Why did I write bicyclists? Oh my gosh! A group of bicyclists. I'm sure that's what he said. A group.
A group of bicyclists and a group of bicyclists.
I will prove it to you. He says bicyclists. I'll prove it. Okay, so a group of cyclists were cycling up in the woods and made their way to a large service cabin at the back of a campground to get a map. They saw a window had been smashed and they started to smell a sweet, putrid scent. Bikers went into the cabin and could see the outline of a decomposing body on a camp bed under multiple sheets.
Oh my gosh.
Beecham arrived at the scene really quickly. There were clear signs of gangrene on the corpse's legs. A necklace next to the bed had Ted inscribed on it.
Wait, this is just one body?
This is one body.
Right.
The body was identified as 32-year-old Ted Weir. Last
What the
seen
heck?
alive 100 days before. He had survived up to 6 weeks before succumbing to pulmonary edema brought on by exposure. Weir would have
Sorry, Ted
walked...
Weir was one of the group.
He was one of the guys, yeah.
Ted's the one who didn't have common sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Weir would have walked...
It's because Ali said about the fire.
Yeah,
how...
he had... I think
So
he
that
had
might
the
be
most
important.
severe learning difficulties.
Yeah.
Weir would have walked 20 miles uphill in just a shirt and corduroy trousers to get to the cabin.
Wow.
And the weather was sub-zero, snow.
Hmm.
Ted Weir, the worst part, he would have been alive in the cabin during the initial search.
Wow.
Around the service cabin, there were 31 cans of food which had been eaten, but an entire other locker's worth of food was untouched, as well as propane gas linked to a heating system, furniture, wood and matches, none of which had been used. So, you know, he could have kept himself warm, he could have eaten more. For some
So it is
reason, it was not
important, yeah.
touched. Beecham also saw that Ted's shoes were gone. He'd been wearing sturdy leather shoes the last time he'd been seen, but all that remained were a pair of tennis shoes belonging to Gary Mathias and a burned out candle. This suggested someone else had been in the cabin after Ted had died but had left. The search started again and uncovered another body between the cabin and the abandoned car. The face had been eaten away by animals.
Oh, that's horrible.
Yeah, this was Jack Madruga. Later that day, not far from Madruga's body...
He was one of the original 5 as well, yeah.
He was. Later that day, not far from Madruga's body, scattered remains of Bill Sterling were found. So all bits of his bones were scattered around.
Oh my gosh.
Scores of volunteers now joined the police search to try and find Jack Hewitt and Gary Mathias. Jack's father also joined the search. He was told, you know, are you sure you want to do this? But he said, I have to try and find my son.
Yeah.
So his dad found a faded Levi's jacket not far from the cabin, and he knew straight away it was his son Jack's.
That's so sad.
When he picked the jacket up, a human spine fell out of it.
Oh.
A spine?
Yeah.
What the
Jack's
heck?
skull was found further down the hill.
Oh my
So the
gosh.
police obviously ran straight up and took
Yeah.
the jacket away from his father.
Okay, hold
father.
on. At this point, we don't know what's happened to Gary Mathias.
No.
Jack McGruger was one of them, was he?
Yeah, he was the one that he was found between the cabin and the abandoned car.
Right,
His
Jack-
face had been eaten away.
Jack Hewitt we've just discovered.
Yeah.
And
So
Ted
far
Wire was
we've
the one
got
in the
Ted
bed.
and both the Jacks. Yeah.
But there's one more that's 4. Who's the fifth one?
No, that's 3. So we're still looking for...
No, you've got Jack McGruger, Jack Hewitt, Ted Wire, Gary Mathias, who we
Oh
don't
yeah,
know
and Bill
about.
Sterling. No, see, we've got all of them, but not Gary Mathias. Okay?
No, but I'm counting 4 men.
Bill.
Bill.
Yeah,
Bill
the
Sterling.
later that day,
Oh,
not
yeah,
far
Bill
from
Sterling.
Madruga's body, scattered remains of Bill Sterling were found.
Oh, so we found 4 of the men.
Matt really is writing
Yeah.
this down.
I'm hooked. I'm invested. Because I want to know how many of the men have we found.
I
We
know,
found 4
this
of
is a
them.
really-
yeah?
We found
good
4.
one.
We
Yeah.
found 4.
So-
Okay, so it's
okay.
just Gary Mathias now.
Yeah. So Jack's skull was found further down the hill. Investigators also found 3 blankets and flashlights, which had been likely taken from the service cabin. But no matter how hard they looked, they found no sign of Gary Mathias. The remains of the 3 men were placed into green canvas bags, after all, just as the
Oh,
psychic
wow.
had seen.
Yeah, that is crazy.
All of the men had died of hypothermia, and animals had gotten to them after they had died.
Oh, that's horrible.
Yeah, really tragic. So, Beecham had his doubts about Gary Mathias from the beginning, as he had found out through his family that Gary had suffered from schizophrenia, He'd been in and out of psychiatric hospitals since he was 15. These were caused by taking hallucinogenic drugs. After that, Matthias suffered another mental breakdown whilst in the army as a result of his continued drug use. At one point, Matthias was arrested after going AWOL, and he attacked the officers on duty while in prison. After that, he went to stay with his cousin and was caught molesting his cousin's wife as she slept.
Oh my gosh. What the heck?
Yeah. So he faced a 12-year prison sentence for intent to rape, but he accepted a plea deal and served only 8 months.
That's ridiculous. That is so ridiculous.
When he was released, his behaviour continued to be erratic. He was getting into a lot of fights and threatening violence. Gary went to live with his grandmother, but turned up at his mother's house weeks later after walking the 540 miles home, eating food he had found along the way to stay alive.
Oh my gosh.
So all of this made Beecham believe Gary may be culpable in the fates of the 4 men, and it also made it likely that Gary would have been able to get out of the forest alive because, you know, he had a lot of experience doing things like that. He'd been in the army. It's been speculated that Matthias and Jack Hewitt made it to the service cabin with Ted Weir, only to leave soon after. So, unless Gary Matthias is found, after all, it is unlikely there will ever be an answer as to exactly what happened that fateful night. Gary's never been found.
What?
Some people think it could have just been a wrong turn, and because of the men's mental capacities, they didn't want to use the gas fire because they were scared, you know, how to use it. They didn't want to get in trouble. And despite Beecham's reservations about Gary Matthias, he had been doing well for 2 years before the disappearance. He hadn't had any psychotic breakdowns. He'd been on medication. And Gary's mother spent the rest of her life trying to find her son.
That is
and
awful.
That is it. Yeah, we don't know.
But Ali, there was no... I mean, they said that they think, like, everyone died of hypothermia, so there wasn't any sign of someone hurting them or...
There was no sign of someone
like
hurting
animals.
them, but obviously some of them had decomposed quite a bit and animals had gotten to them, so the animals could have ruined evidence. Plus, let me share what I thought as soon as I first heard this. I thought possibly Gary had wanted to mess about with the guys a little bit.
Yeah.
Got them to drive up into the mountains, and he just got carried away, started messing about, scaring them a little bit, so they all ran off. I don't know. I mean, that's the only thing that makes sense to me, is that Gary maybe said, let's go up in the mountains, come on, you know, they all did it, and then it just got completely out of hand. But then, that's what I think.
Why was Ted Wire under blankets in the bed?
Well, Ted was obviously the most inflicted by being outside. Maybe he was wearing the least, maybe the cold just got to him more, so he started getting ill.
Yeah, but what I mean is, like, they must have been able to check his body. Well, I don't know. I mean, surely they knew the cause of death. Was it starvation?
Well, yeah. Well, no.
Hypothermia.
Hypothermia. Pulmonary edema brought on by hypothermia.
Yeah, so like, that wouldn't have been Gary Matthias's doing, would it?
No, I mean... but what if Gary had encouraged them to go up in the mountains and then started mucking about with them, maybe scaring them a little bit, so they all got out the car and started running?
Yeah, that was just my thought. If it was kind of like a prank gone wrong.
Yeah, a prank gone completely wrong. And then by the time Ted got to the cabin and the others followed him, Ted was feeling really, really ill. Yeah. Maybe the others then went out to try and get help or to find their way home, and they just couldn't, you know. That's why there were the sleeping bags and the torches. I mean, what do you guys think?
Because there was no reason for them to be in the mountains, was there?
Not at all. It wasn't the way home. The
so
car,
like,
there was no reason why they'd leave the car. It had petrol. It started straight away.
Also, you said really that strange. This was a trip they'd done quite a few times.
Yeah, they'd done this several times.
And had they done it with Gary?
Their favourite game. Yeah.
Oh, so they'd all done it. All 5 of them had done it before.
But you can imagine, I mean, like a group of guys and stuff, like it's easy for it to be like, oh yeah, let's go into the mountains. Like it is just a bit of fun or something. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, it could happen. You just have no idea.
Also, sidebar, really there were reports that someone phoned into the police station a week after the guys went missing and said, I know where the guys are.
Oh.
And they phoned a couple times, and another time they said all of the men are dead. And the policewoman said, "What are you talking about?" And he goes, "Don't play dumb." And he hung up. But the police do reckon it wasn't Gary. Like, I can't remember how, but they just said that it was highly unlikely it was Gary. So it just remains a mystery. And the sad thing is, if Gary had nothing to do with it, his mum has suffered over the years with people saying, well, did your son do something? Where's he?
Yeah, of course.
So she's obviously wanted to try and find him her whole life because it's her son, and because she wants to be like, if he's innocent, I want his name cleared. But obviously it looks bad because he's the only one that hasn't been found all these years.
Yeah, but the fact that he hasn't been found, though, means he's disappeared. So surely... like, he's disappeared as well. They just haven't found his body.
Yeah, he's either disappeared and they haven't... I mean, yeah, because where else would he be? He couldn't hide out forever.
If he was struggling to function properly, I doubt he'd be able to hide his identity and run away that well. It's more likely they've just never found his bones.
Yeah.
He might have fallen into... I don't know if there was a river. Or,
there could have been a river, a ravine. He could have got eaten. Maybe he was taken by animals. I mean... Obviously, it's a mystery we'd love to have solved.
If he walked 500, was it miles?
540 miles, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and the Proclaimers were obviously following him, and right.
I mean, yeah, you're right. He could have walked much further into the mountain,
point I'm making is
and that's why they never found him.
If he walked 500 miles from his grandma's house to his mum's house, I don't see how he would then suddenly be able to just escape detection and flee for the rest of his life. Like he doesn't seem to know how to be able to get a car or plan a journey or you know, like literally he just walks and picks up food on the way. How would he be able to hide his identity that well? It's much more likely he did just die and we haven't found his body.
Yeah, plus he was on tablets to help his schizophrenia, so without them there would have been reports of him at some point. And someone with schizophrenia,
it doesn't mean he can survive lower temperatures more than other people. Like temperature gets
he could have walked so far, and that's why they haven't found his body. But he's still you just don't
it's
know,
really sad though. I mean, it's devastating to think these 5 guys were just going to watch their favourite game. And because because of the mental difficulties they had, it resulted in this. I mean, it's so upsetting, you know.
Yeah, it's horrible.
But
not as upsetting as Two Princes. That's what we
Did you like that story though?
Yeah, it was really good. Yeah,
really interesting. Yeah.
I thought you were going to say
something.
No, I was just going to say the guy who tells it is amazing. Like, I would really recommend you listen to the original.
Much better than us. So
he's really good. He goes into so much detail.
Yeah, and it's the same with Case File, because obviously we're kind of just telling it, and we're not professionals, but they are really professional, and
they're amazing.
Does he have the background music and stuff?
Yeah,
as well?
He honestly, I love the
music.
way he tells stories.
You didn't tell me about the background music. I could have been doing background music whilst you were talking, like you say, and then a car was found. I'm going.
These guys really set a scene, though. You know,
it
depends.
I
mean, what we're doing here is essentially campfire.
Well, this is completely different.
So if you're sitting around a campfire and then you go right,
Are You Afraid of the Dark?
I'll pull up my CD player and all my notes. Like,
oh my gosh, enough. I think we should call it Campfire Stories. I like that.
Yes, I really
like that.
It's like Are You Afraid of the Dark?
Yeah.
Are you
Campfire
afraid
Stories. That is cool.
The campfire.
Yeah, I love that. I love that.
Let's
I think
do that.
That should be the name. Yeah. So welcome to Campfire Stories, guys.
Yeah.
This has been the first episode of Campfire Stories, and we hope you liked it.
Yes.
Yeah. With the Ilden siblings.
Ilden? Why are you saying Ilden?
I don't know, because that means what does that mean? 3 sisters?
No, that's three sisters,
Matt.
I'm not a girl.
Matt, you're going to have to write a little theme tune for us.
We are the Powells. Pals and Proud.
Oh, God.
Oh, yeah,
you're going to have to write a little theme tune.
But listen, are we going to sign out now?
Yeah, I think so.
I think that was a good place, a good first episode.
That was fantastic, guys. And we all did something a little bit different, which was great.
Wait, we need to say goodbye.
Yeah, so thank you so much for joining us.
we really hope you guys enjoyed it. I found it really fun. Did you guys?
So much fun.
I actually loved that. Yeah, that was
Yeah,
really good.
so much fun.
Yeah.
Obviously, we don't know, this is just budget for us at the moment. We don't know how the sound's going to be and what it's going to be like, but hopefully you'll just bear with us and we'll get better as we go.
We'll get better, and we've really loved sharing our stories, and it's been so much fun.
So much fun.
And the stories are true. That was one of the
Matt's might not be, but ours are.
Matt's was the most historic.
Yeah,
but
what we're doing is finding the best stories and bringing them straight to you, so you don't have to listen to hours of these stories. We'll just this is the best thing from here.
We cut them down and we retell them in a shorter version,
without music or facts. We're very set on that.
Facts. There are as many facts as we can.
Yeah, there were a lot of facts actually.
Yeah.
Well,
we tried.
We'll see you.
Thank you so much.
Next week.
All right,
everybody.
Goodbye.
Hopefully,
See ya.
Bye. Bye.
Bye. Bye.